Welcome back to another edition of Chef Knives to Go Quick Look Product Reviews. I'm Steve Gamache, and in this edition we are looking at the Shin Saku Blue No. 2 or Aogami No. 2 Bocho 120mm knife. As stated, the core steel is Aogami or Blue Paper No. 2 reactive high carbon steel from Hitachi. The heat treat's approximate 60, 61-ish, maybe 62. These are done kind of by eye. The construction is a reactive iron cladding on either side of that blue No. 2 for a 3-layer sandwich, and they have a protective kurauchi or blacksmith finish on top of that, and then they do coat these blades entirely with lacquer, food safe lacquer, which you could remove with acetone if you wanted to do that, or you could let it wear off naturally. So you've got a couple layers of protection there, but the knife itself is completely reactive. There's no stainless on it. The weight is 65 grams or 2.3 ounces, and these weights and dimensions are going to vary a little bit from knife to knife. The edge length is 122 millimeters on this particular sample from tip to chin, 4.8 inches. Overall length about 9.3 inches. Spine thickness is going to vary, but these are fairly thick out of the spine. This one's 3.6, but it drops down pretty quickly off of that to 2 something, maybe 2-ish or so, and then thins out right at the very, very tip with the grind. These are tall style of blades, so this one's about 39.7 millimeters, almost 40 millimeters at the back of the blade. The handles are nothing fancy, but they're kind of nicer than some of the plastic ferrule handles you've seen on things, so they've upgraded that a bit. So they are D-shaped, basic hoe wood handle with buffalo horn ferrule. Slight step between the wood and the ferrule. You could sand that down very easily if you wanted to. And you do have a little bit of a gap there on the install, so you probably want to fill that with some beeswax or some kind of epoxy or something to seal that up so you don't get water in there. These have kind of a slightly rustic, kind of hammered finish to them, which is pretty cool. They're shiny because of the lacquer. I'm sure that's kind of more of a matte finish. They do have a hand-chiseled kanji on there, which is pretty neat, and for a blade in this kind of price range. And then they've also got embossed kanji on the other side. Here is your core steel at the edge. Fit and finish is really pretty decent on these. The spine and the choil are relieved enough where it's comfortable right out of the box. Out of the box edge is so-so, maybe 3 out of 10 because of that lacquer. So I would go ahead and sharpen it right off the bat to get that lacquer off the edge. Maybe cut your own edge on that. The steel sharpens really nicely, so that's easy to do. Balance point is kind of like right where the choil is. Very neutral. Let's look at it on a cutting board. These have plenty of height for cutting. One thing I did fail to mention is these do have their particular styles to blunt the tip a little bit with the shape of that. If you wanted a pointy tip, it's a little weird using a blunted tip for me. I'm just not used to it. But if you wanted to point that tip, I would take it off the spine. So grind down the spine, keeping the shape, and then work it towards the edge. Don't try to take the edge up towards the tip. It probably wouldn't take too long on this style of knife to put a tip on there and make a nice sharp pointy tip if you wanted to do that. Let's take a look on the cutting board because this does have plenty of height for board work. It's one of the nice things about the knife. So there's your profile. Definitely curvy. These are fairly thick, but they do get fairly thin towards the edge, so the performance on these is actually pretty decent. They've got kind of a cool grind on them. A little flatter on the left side, or the right side of the blade than the left side, but they again, the performance on these is actually pretty nice. So these are pretty cool knives. I've got 5 of them in. I'm digging all of them. They're pretty neat. So here we have a new line for chef knives to go at the time of this video anyway. This is the Shin Saku Aogami Blue No. 2 Bocho 120mm.